The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Confederation's High Council stood as a testament to the vastness and diversity of the galaxy, an architectural marvel symbolizing centuries of interstellar cooperation and diplomacy. The walls, adorned with the emblems of 100 worlds, seemed to pulse with the energy of countless debates and decisions. Commander Daniel Hale, standing before the assembly, felt the weight of humanity's future pressing heavily on his shoulders. His immaculate charcoal uniform, bearing the United Earth Federation insignia, caught the light as he adjusted his stance. Sweat beaded on his forehead, not just from the intensity of the situation but also from the heat of the council's scrutiny. His heart pounded, a relentless reminder of the stakes. The room was filled with representatives from across the galaxy. The venerable Chancellor Ethar, with his long silver hair flowing like a waterfall, and the reptilian Drazi representative Halon, whose cold yellow eyes seemed to pierce through Daniel, were among them. Each had their own agendas and prejudices. Daniel took a deep breath, memories of the Drazi's brutal attacks on human colonies flooding his mind. He had seen the charred remains of cities, the lifeless bodies of innocents, and the hollow-eyed despair of survivors. The Drazi were not just enemies, they were monsters intent on eradicating humanity. "We told them to run while they still could," Daniel began, his voice strong and clear despite the tension. "We warned the Galactic Confederation of the Drazi aggression, of their unprovoked attacks on our colonies. But you," he pointed a finger at the assembly, his eyes blazing with anger, "you betrayed us. Now, you will pay the price." The room fell silent, the alien faces before him impassive. The council members exchanged glances, their expressions unreadable. Daniel knew he had to make them understand the gravity of the situation, to convey the desperation and resolve of the human race. "Humanity stands on the brink of annihilation," he continued, his voice rising. "We came to you for help, for justice under the Galactic Charter. Instead, you turned a blind eye to our suffering, but we will not go quietly into the night. We will fight, and we will survive." The journey back to Earth was long and somber, the silence in the ship's cabin a stark contrast to the roaring engines. Daniel sat in his quarters, staring out at the endless expanse of stars. The betrayal of the Council stung deeply, a wound that would not easily heal. The Confederation's refusal to act, their decision to side with the Drazi, had left humanity vulnerable and alone in its darkest hour. As the UF command ship entered Earth's orbit, Daniel felt a knot of anxiety tighten in his chest. He knew he had to deliver the devastating news to President Clara Hayes and the UF leadership, to tell them that the galaxy had turned its back on them. He steeled himself for the confrontation, knowing that their anger and frustration would mirror his own. The council chamber on Earth was a stark contrast to the grandeur of the Confederation's hall. It was functional, utilitarian, a testament to humanity's resilience and determination. President Hayes sat at the head of the table, her sharp eyes fixed on Daniel as he entered. The top military brass flanked her, their expressions grim and expectant. Daniel took a deep breath and began, "The council has refused our plea for help. They have sided with the Drazi." President Hayes' reaction was immediate and visceral. She slammed her fist on the table, her face contorted with rage. "Those bastards," she shouted. "They're leaving us to die." The room erupted in a chorus of disbelief and outrage. General Marcus Steele, a grizzled veteran with a scar running down his cheek, shook his head in disbelief. "What are we supposed to do now?" he growled. Daniel raised a hand to silence them. "We take matters into our own hands," he said firmly. He laid out his plan, bold and daring, a strike at the heart of the Drazi Empire, targeting their military capabilities to force them to the negotiating table. It was a gamble, a high-risk maneuver that could either save humanity or doom it to extinction. President Hayes eyed him skeptically. "This could lead to a full-scale galactic war," she warned. "Are you sure about this, Daniel?" Daniel met her gaze, his resolve unwavering. "It's the only way to ensure the survival of our species. We have no choice." The room fell silent, the weight of the decision hanging heavily in the air. Finally, President Hayes nodded, her expression hardening with determination. "All right," she said, "let's do it." The mobilization of the UF forces was a monumental task, a logistical nightmare requiring the coordination of resources and personnel from across the human colonies. The fleet, a testament to humanity's ingenuity and resilience, assembled in Earth's orbit. A formidable array of warships ready to face the Drazi threat. Among the officers chosen for this critical mission was Captain Sarah Wolf, a battle-hardened veteran known for her tactical brilliance and unorthodox strategies. Daniel and Captain Wolf spent countless hours poring over intelligence reports, analyzing the Drazi defenses and planning their assault. The target was a heavily guarded space station, a hub for Drazi military logistics, critical to their supply lines. As the final preparations were made, an unexpected visitor arrived on the command ship. Vaughn, a representative of the enigmatic Voran race, requested an audience with Daniel. The Vorans were known for their advanced technology and secretive nature, their motives often shrouded in mystery. Daniel met with Vaughn in a secluded briefing room, wary but intrigued by the Voran offer. Vaughn, cloaked in a flowing robe that shimmered with iridescent colors, got straight to the point. "We have been observing your struggle," he said, his voice a melodic blend of tones. "The Drazi must be stopped. We can provide you with advanced weapons technology, but in return we require intelligence on their defenses and key military installations." Daniel's eyes narrowed. "Why help us? What's in it for you?" Vaughn's eyes, deep pools of shifting color, met Daniel's gaze. "The Drazi are a threat to more than just humanity. Their ambitions endanger the entire galaxy. Our interests align, for now." After consulting with President Hayes and Captain Wolf, Daniel agreed to the deal. The Voran technology, sleek and deadly, was quickly integrated into the UF fleet's arsenal. The ships, now armed with weapons far beyond human capabilities, prepared to launch their assault on the Drazi supply station. The battle was fierce and brutal. The Drazi defenses, formidable and relentless, inflicted heavy losses on the UF fleet. But the superior technology and tactics of the human forces prevailed. The station was destroyed in a spectacular explosion, its debris scattered across the void. The Drazi supply lines were shattered, their ability to sustain their war effort severely compromised. The news of the UF's victory spread quickly, rippling through the galaxy like a shockwave. The Confederation, previously content to remain neutral, was forced to reconsider its stance. Some member races, inspired by humanity's resilience and determination, began to question the wisdom of siding with the Drazi. Others saw an opportunity to challenge the status quo and push for a new order in the galaxy. But the Drazi were not ready to concede defeat. They launched a brutal counterattack, targeting human colonies with ruthless efficiency. Entire cities were reduced to rubble, their populations decimated. The war escalated, plunging the galaxy into chaos as battles erupted on multiple fronts. In the midst of the turmoil, Daniel paced the command deck of the UF flagship, his mind racing with strategies and contingencies. Captain Wolf stood beside him, her eyes fixed on the holographic display of Drazi space. "We can't keep fighting like this," Daniel said, his voice tinged with frustration. "They're too strong. We need to end this war once and for all." Wolf nodded, her expression grim. "I agree." "But how?" Daniel pointed to a glowing red dot on the map. "Drazen, the heart of their empire. Intel suggests they're developing a new weapon there, something capable of destroying entire planets." Wolf's eyes widened in shock. "If we could capture or destroy it, it could force them to surrender." Daniel's gaze was steely. "But it won't be easy. Drazen is heavily defended. We'll need help." Wolf thought for a moment, then nodded. "I have some ideas." Reaching out across the stars, Daniel and Wolf called in favors and forged new alliances. Among those who answered the call was Dr. Aurora Naren, a brilliant scientist whose work had the potential to change the course of the war. Daniel and Wolf met with Dr. Naren on a remote research station hidden deep within an asteroid field. Dr. Naren, a petite woman with sharp features and piercing blue eyes, greeted them with a nervous smile, her hands trembling slightly as she led them to her lab. The room was cluttered with equipment and half-finished projects, a testament to the frenetic pace of her work. "Thank you for coming," Naren said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I think I can help you." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "What do you have for us?" Naren took a deep breath and motioned to a device on the table. It was small, unassuming, but Daniel could sense the power it contained. "This," she said, "is a prototype energy weapon. It's capable of generating a focused beam of pure energy, powerful enough to cut through the thickest armor." Wolf's eyes widened in astonishment. "And you think this can help us take down the Drazi weapon on Drazen?" Naren nodded, her eyes shining with hope. "Yes, but there's more. I believe we can amplify its power using the Voran technology you've acquired. If we succeed, it could turn the tide of the war." The plan was risky, but the potential reward was too great to ignore. With Naren's help, they began the arduous process of integrating the Voran technology with her prototype. The work was painstaking, every step fraught with challenges and setbacks, but as the days turned into weeks, a bond formed between Daniel, Wolf, and Naren, a shared determination to see the mission through. Finally, the weapon was ready. It was a marvel of engineering, sleek and deadly, its power contained within a crystalline matrix. The team assembled in the control room, their faces lined with exhaustion but alight with hope. "We have one shot at this," Daniel said, his voice steady. "Let's make it count." The mission to Drazen was a daring gambit, a high-stakes infiltration deep into enemy territory. The UF fleet, augmented with Voran technology, launched a diversionary assault on the outskirts of the Drazi defenses. Meanwhile, Daniel, Wolf, and Naren led a small elite team on a covert insertion mission to the surface. The Drazi homeworld was a harsh, inhospitable place, its landscape dominated by jagged mountains and volcanic plains. The team moved swiftly and silently through the shadows, their suits blending seamlessly with the environment. As they approached the Drazi research facility, Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. The air was thick with tension, the weight of their task pressing heavily on their shoulders. Inside the facility, the corridors were a labyrinth of steel and concrete, patrolled by heavily armed guards. The team split into two groups, Daniel and Wolf heading for the control center, while Naren and the others made their way to the heart of the facility where the weapon was being developed. The control center was a hive of activity, Drazi scientists and officers monitoring the progress of the weapon. Daniel and Wolf took out the guards with surgical precision, their silenced weapons barely making a sound. They accessed the mainframe, downloading critical data and planting a virus to disrupt the Drazi systems. As they worked, Wolf glanced at Daniel, her expression a mix of determination and concern. "You know this is a suicide mission, right?" Daniel met her gaze, his eyes unwavering. "We knew the risks, but we have to do this. For Earth, for humanity." Meanwhile, Naren and her team reached the heart of the facility. The weapon, a massive construct of steel and energy, loomed before them, its power humming ominously. Naren set to work, her fingers flying over the controls as she prepared to overload the reactor. The Drazi guards, alerted by the virus in their systems, converged on the facility. The sound of gunfire echoed through the corridors as the team fought to hold them off. Daniel and Wolf joined the fray, their weapons blazing as they cut down wave after wave of Drazi soldiers. "How much longer?" Daniel shouted over the din. "Almost there," Naren replied, her voice strained with concentration. Finally, the reactor began to overload, the air crackling with energy. "Get out of there," Naren yelled, her eyes wide with fear. "It's going to blow." The team raced for the exit, the facility shaking violently as the reactor neared critical mass. As they reached the surface, a massive explosion tore through the facility, a blinding flash of light that sent a shockwave rippling across the landscape. The team was thrown to the ground, the force of the blast knocking the wind out of them. As Daniel struggled to his feet, he saw a figure emerging from the smoke and debris. It was Halon, the Drazi representative who had betrayed them at the council. His face was twisted with rage, his eyes burning with hatred. "You think you've won?" Halon spat, his voice a venomous hiss. "This is only the beginning." He lunged forward, his blade aiming for Daniel's throat. Daniel braced himself for the end. Suddenly, a blinding flash of light erupted from Daniel's suit. Halon screamed as the energy engulfed him, his body disintegrating in the intense heat. His guards, too close to escape, met the same fate. Daniel blinked, his vision clearing to reveal Dr. Naren standing nearby, a device in her hands. "Thought you could use a hand," Naren said, a grin on her face. Daniel nodded, his heart still racing. "Thanks, Alara. You saved my life. Let's finish this." Wolf said, her voice hoarse but determined. They planted charges throughout the facility, setting the timers and racing for the exit. Behind them, the charges detonated, a series of massive explosions ripping through the complex. The ground shook and the sky lit up with fire. As they boarded their shuttle and lifted off, they watched as the facility collapsed in on itself, a massive fireball consuming it. Back on the flagship, Daniel and Wolf stood before the UF leadership. President Hayes' face was a mix of relief and exhaustion. "We did it," Daniel said. "The weapon is destroyed." Hayes nodded. "But the war isn't over yet. The Drazi will come at us with everything they have." Daniel met her gaze. "Let them come. We'll be ready." The victory on Drazen was a turning point. The Drazi, their morale shattered, began to retreat. The Galactic Confederation, seeing the tide turn, finally intervened, forcing a ceasefire. Daniel Hale stood before the council once more, his heart pounding. But this time, he was not pleading for help, he was demanding justice. The council members, their faces pale, listened in silence as he recounted the Drazi's atrocities and the council's betrayal. "You left us to die," Daniel said, his voice cold. "But we survived. And now we demand justice." The council, cowed by the humans' determination and their growing support among other races, agreed to Daniel's demands. The Drazi were held accountable for their war crimes, and the council vowed to reform to ensure such a betrayal would never happen again. Daniel returned to Earth a hero. But he knew the price of victory. Too many had died, and the scars of war would take years to heal. He stood before a memorial to the fallen, his heart heavy. Captain Wolf, Dr. Narin, President Hayes, and countless others joined him, paying their respects. "We did it," Wolf said, her voice quiet. "We survived." Daniel nodded. But at what cost? They stood in silence, the weight of their losses pressing down on them. But in that silence, there was also hope for a future free from the shadow of war, a future where humanity, united and strong, could finally find peace.